We have a box here all the way from Australia, from Homann Designs, owned by Peter Homann. And if I'm mispronouncing your name, Peter, I apologize. I certainly don't mean to. This was free to me. Well, it wasn't totally free. He asked me to pay shipping. It is a prototype, maybe ready for production, pendant that works supposedly exactly the same as the Shuttle Express for controlling a Tormach CNC milling machine. Or might work with the lathe, I don't know. Not familiar with the Tormach lathes. And this is the first time I've looked at it. As you saw, I just opened the box. But I did tell Peter he couldn't send it to me unless I could trash it if I didn't like it or praise it if I liked it. So other than having gotten this free device, I have no obligation to be anything but fair. I like the look of it. Part of it looks 3D printed and part of it looks plastic injected. The body looks plastic injected, so I'm wondering if he got this case from a different pendant. But it's got the same 5 buttons in a different configuration. Step to change the step increment, X, Y, Z, and A if you have a rotary axis. And I do have a rotary axis, but I don't use it very often, so it's not installed on the machine. But supposedly, this is a direct plug-in replacement for the Shuttle Express. And you may have saw in the last video that this Shuttle Express works exactly like the Tormach labeled shuttle. So I guess the first thing to do is take the rubber band off and plug it in. And I don't think I have enough USB ports. No, I don't. I don't have enough USB ports on the controller to see if it will work concurrently with the Shuttle Express. So we're going to unplug the Shuttle Express, plug this in, and see how it works. I have no idea what the price of this is going to be. Like I said, all I paid for was the shipping. But here we go. Alright. We have a red light. I don't know what that means. The step button shows what the step increment is. And if this is like the regular Shuttle Express, this will jog the machine, X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z, and A, which I can't jog because I don't have my 4th axis installed. I only put it on the table one. But it basically seems to work exactly the same as the Shuttle Express. It's just maybe a little more convenient package, and I'll show you what I mean. I guess the first thing is I like to hang my pendant up out of the way, and I have this hook right here that I already installed, although he did send a plastic hook with it. It's actually a nice looking, also looks 3D printed, but the layer lines go this way, so it should be fairly strong this way. I'm not going to try and break it. He did send a nice looking printed plastic hook, but I'm going to see if it'll hang on the aluminum hook that I already have installed on the machine for my Vista pendant. Oh! It has a magnetic back. Well, that's nice. That means that you could temporarily stick it somewhere handy while you're working. Well, it's not super strong, but it doesn't look like an obvious magnetic back, but there's obviously a magnet inside the case. Anyway, it hangs nicely on my aluminum hook. Anyway, one of the reasons I like the pendant to hang up out of the way is that chips won't accumulate on it. Chips and coolant and whatnot. And yes, I know it's outside the cabinet and the cabinet's supposed to hold all of that in, but look at my floor, come on. And yes, I do scrape all of that up periodically and throw it in the trash. But I like to keep the pendant hung up out of the way. But I also like a pendant primarily so when I'm working inside the cabinet, you know, I'm up here, I've got a workpiece in the vise and I'm using an edge finder, or I've got a block in the vise and I'm using the height gauge, so that I can just get right up here and control what I'm doing. Right here, edge up on the workpiece, then let's change the step to 10,000th because I like it at 10,000th, and then just go in the last little bit until the edge finder clicks over. Or if I've got a height gauge on the table, now let's grab a height gauge. Now, I don't use the top surface of the vice jaws as a reference for anything, but it's a nice convenient place to set the height gauge right now. Alright, say I want to zero in on the top of a workpiece, get my height. I can just set it to Z, grab it down close. Let's see here. Get her lined up. Then when I get close, just and now our cutter is exactly 4 inches, because that's the tested height of the height gauge when it's zeroed. Our cutter is exactly 4 inches above the surface, and I can come over to the DRO and set the current Z height for the current tool at 4 inches, and the machine will know where the workpiece is. But I like that because I can be right up here with this. And you could argue, well, you can bring the pendant over here and do that. That's true, but the pendant doesn't really lend itself to, or not the pendant, the Shuttle Express, doesn't really lend itself to that as well. It's intended to be set on a shelf, just, you know, which is where I have it. Doesn't really lend itself to that as well. But I do like some of the features of my Vista CNC pendants better, and I can make, not this particular model, maybe this model, I can make the Vista CNC pendants work with the Linux CNC kernel core of PathPilot by changing a few settings in some of the setup files in PathPilot and updating the firmware in the pendant to a Linux CNC firmware. But it's a little, I don't want to say glitchy, but it's a little funny. It'll show the DRO for whatever axis I'm moving. You know, I've got a nice, I like this positive indication of what I'm doing. In this position, it's in step mode. Every click of the wheel is 1 step for whatever it's step. And then the jog mode just jogs however as fast or as slow as I turn it. Similar to this. Well, it works similar to this, except this has the advantage of this always being step mode and this always being jog mode. So that may be more convenient when I get used to it, now that I have an actual pendant that I can use instead of the shuttle. The display is definitely nice, although to be honest, I rarely am using the display here to look at the coordinates when I'm using the pendant. Usually I'm looking at an edge finder or a height setter when I'm using the pendant. So for me, the display is a nice touch and I may occasionally use it, but it's not a necessity. It's not really what I'm looking at when I'm using the pendant. This has an emergency stop button on it that works under Mach 3, but it doesn't work on Linux CNC or PathPilot, so the e-stop is of questionable utility. But it is nice to be able to have basically the same pendant on all my machines. This one, as you can see, is currently hooked up to a machine that is running Mach 3. It's actually running Mach 3 under Windows 7 Pro 64, and it works great, but I wanted the Tormach machine over here, and it's a Linux CNC kernel. Oh, excuse that noise. Overall, there's two things that I would like. I'd really like that this doesn't have. A positive indication of which axis is selected. I can push the access button and make sure. The x-axis, y-axis, z-axis, etc. But it'd be nice to, like on this pendant, on a more conventional pendant, it says X, Y, Z, A, and whatever it's pointed at is what moves. I think that would be a fairly easy thing to implement on this. I don't know if enough people would like that enough to be worth it, but you could probably have a selector switch that replaces these buttons, which means they would be basically in contact continuously. Let's see if that works. Press X and hold it. I just broke a tool. I just broke the edge of that insert and damaged the edge of my height setter. That's what I get for not paying attention. Anyway, I don't think it would be a big deal to just replace these 4 buttons with a selector switch. If other people think that's a good idea. As far as setting the step increment, I'd almost be tempted to have the ability to turn the step increment button off or maybe remove it, so that, because I don't think there's any way to set the step increment. Oh yes, there is. There's a setting on this to set the step increment. Right here you can set the step increment on these. You move it over here and you can dial it back and forth. I never use that setting. I didn't know it was there until right now, because I always leave my step increment set at 1/10,000th. So I might be tempted to well, I'm going to use it exactly the way it is for now, because I want to give it a fair shake. But I might be tempted to remove or super glue the step increment button so I never accidentally change the step increment. And so I can always slow jog with this. And I can always step with this. Overall, I like it better so far, initially. I like it better than this. It's considerably more convenient if I pay attention to what I'm doing. But I don't know yet if I'll like it better than this. Only time will tell.